Well, welcome everyone. I want to welcome our guest here today, Anthony Ballard, all the way from Seattle, Washington. I had a chance to meet and work with Anthony a couple of years ago when we were doing a racial reconciliation workshop with Dr. Brenda Salter McNeil, and Anthony was there in attendance. Then come to find out that Anthony is an artist. Thank you so much for your willingness to come and be with us tonight on what we call Artscape to Heartscape. It's an opportunity to introduce our Convergence community to artists and for artists to be introduced to the Convergence community. We're a group of people who love God. It's just exciting to see how God uses art to inspire all of us. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Well,
Thanks for having me. So honored.
It's great. Well, I always like to start out with just asking, what's life like as an artist, an illustrator in the life of Anthony Ballard?
Yeah, it's kind of all over because part of what I do. So I think similar to Lisa, like I'm in pastoral ministry as well. I lead a discipleship ministry at a large church here in Seattle, Seattle's East Side. And then, but I didn't start that way. Like the plan was to just do art and be a creator and illustrator with comics and books and things like that. So now I think of art as like the night job. So daytime, it's, I would say traditional ministry, because I look at art still as a type of ministry too. Even if it's not explicitly Christian, it's still, there's something in it that I think is spiritual that God delights in and has given us that gift. And so, yeah, the art is the night thing. And I'm a night owl too, so I can stay up till like 2 or 3 sometimes. On a really good night when it's like, the creative energy is there and I can draw. I feel like I can draw anything in the world. I can stay up easily like 2 or 3 and just go. That's not every night though, because sometimes I force myself to go to sleep because then I got to be up early. So I'm not an early person, and then sometimes I'm required to get up early though. So it's push and pull. It's push and pull for both.
So what are you currently working on?
Yeah. So right now there's a couple of things. I'm trying to get a piece in a restaurant here in a city called Bellevue. So 2 Seattle Seahawks players started a restaurant out here, and I'm trying to do it. And they have like artwork from all kinds of artists and stuff. And I was like, looking at some of that, I was like, I think I can get something in here. Let me put something together. So right now I'm trying to do like a football piece of these 2 players, Richard Sherman and Cam Chancellor. And so just to do it and then present it like, hey, you guys want to put this up? Like just for the sake of doing it. So not like a full length book project, but it's just going to be a regular piece in and of itself. There's not much I can show you on it because I didn't do much of it yet. So here, speaking of how to both go, like right now I'm in sermon mode. Like next week I preach, and I preach about once a quarter. So I'm not like write a sermon in a day and then edit it on Saturday night. Like I need like a couple weeks to think, put some stuff together. So right now I'm in sermon mode. So art's kind of on the sideline right now. And then once that's done, then I can do the balance again.
Oh, well, I'm curious then, do you ever use your art as part of your sermons?
I have. I've done one sermon where I've shown art. I have an idea for a sermon that will connect both. And here, the thing that's always like prohibited me from doing like an art sermon is I need like the time and the headspace to try to do both at the same time. Because my fear is like, okay, something's gonna surface. I don't want the art to be bad and the sermon to be great, or the sermon to be bad but the art to be really cool. So I'm trying to figure out like, how do I do both of these things in a way where the message is clear and it's also interesting, and it's not like, I don't really get what he was trying to do with that. Like, what was he trying to draw? But I definitely have a just sermon illustration, for lack of a better word, about how artists observe things and how it relates to our walk with Jesus.
Well, so talk to us about that.
Yeah, I think of it's in Hebrews. I'm why am I blanking on the scripture right now? But looking on Jesus, the author and perfecter of our faith. And when I think about how we look to Jesus, and there's people around us that give us a glimpse of what Jesus is like, but it's so important that we look at our reference point is Jesus himself. Because artists, you got to look. References are important because you might try
Hmm.
to draw a bird or a hand, but if you don't sometimes look at a reference, something will be off just a little bit. And a reference check actually helps you make sure the thing is rightly aligned. And so there's oftentimes people that we connect with or look to, or ideas and concepts that do point us to Jesus, but if we never get back to the source and check our reference, it can often lead us just to be a little off. That eye will just be a
Mhm.
little too far off to the side, or the finger will just be a little weird. And checking the reference will actually put things back in place. So that's kind of like my art sermon that I have not given or read
Okay.
or done yet. But the idea is to show them like, hey, you can draw a lot from memory, paint something from memory, and do pretty good. But eventually, if it's going to look accurate to what real life is like, you need to check your reference. And it's the same thing with Jesus. So we can have concepts of Jesus and all that, but sometimes we got to go back and make sure we look at what he said and what he did to be most accurate and on point.
Hmm.
So all of it kind of that's kind of the plan. One day I'll preach that one. And
Okay. So when did you realize that you were an artist?
yeah. Um, More middle school. So, but let me go back before that. There was a summer. It was summer of 1997. I know because there's a piece that's signed by my dad and myself. So me and my dad one day drew a picture of Batman and Robin, and my dad drew most of it. My dad's he wouldn't call himself an artist, but he could always draw. And so I one day really wanted to draw Batman. I was, 90s kid who loved the cartoon. And we drew a picture together. And I did my little part, but mostly watched him. And then when we signed it, it said something like it might have been June or July 1997. And I was 6 years old at that time. And that to me, to see him like draw like good, was just like, I want to do that too. But then in middle school, I started to really start to get good and be able to copy things that I saw, like other cartoon pictures or other drawings. So I was able to like see something, say, hey, let me try my way. Started to get good at that. And then by high school, it was like, I want to do this for real, for work. Um, and then I'm kind of skipping over several years, but then it wasn't until I moved to Seattle. Well, I'd had one small art gig before, but I would say Seattle is when which was 8 years ago now, when I got like my actual freelance work where people were paying me. And for me, that's when I started to say I'm a professional artist. Once people give you money, no matter how much money it is, it could be $2. You're a professional at that point. So if you're wondering, I don't know if there's anyone here maybe who watches it later. You're a professional once someone gives you money. And it doesn't have to be a lot. It just needs to be anything. So put that on your bio, your resume, professional artist. If someone gives you $1.
So curious also,
Yeah.
how has your faith impacted your idea of being an artist?
Yeah.
Now, not a professional artist. I am just simply saying an artist.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, this isn't gonna probably go exactly the way you're thinking, but go with me on this.
I'm there.
Okay. I've always struggled with certain Christian forms of art and
Mm,
more modern, pretty much from like maybe the 80s to even today. It's always been I've always wanted more, and I've always found myself drawn to what you might say non-Christian art. Um, uh, and so I've always been like, man, how come some of the kids' books, the art's just to me, it's just okay. Why can't it have more detail and more excitement and things? Um, and so I've always wanted to try to like bring my gifts, or my taste to the Christian art world in a way that would excite me as a reader or a participant, and even try to find and support Christian art, that explicitly Christian art, I should say, that is like exciting, but ooh, that looks good, or that's inspiring to me. That gets me wanting to make something. Um, and so one of the, I mean, right now, probably one of my favorite Christian art form, art media that's out right now is like the Bible Project. I think they're doing like the way they're bridging animation and like the Bible together in a way that's like that's creative and really well produced. To me, is really exciting, because unfortunately, I feel like Christians should be, we should be paving the way for a lot of innovations, things like that, because we're connected to the source, right? But sometimes I find that we're only feel, trying to sound judgmental, though, we only feel some, I feel like some Christians get stuck to think that we can only paint a cross or a lamb. And it's like, yes, we can do that. And you can also find Jesus in the mundane things, the everyday things of life as well. Or an action story or a love story that you're telling. God is present in all of those things. So I hope for myself is to try to show like, how are we seeing God in other forms of art beyond the lamb and the cross painting. Like no shade on the lamb and the cross paintings,
No,
everybody. But
I hear you.
there's more to the Bible's. There's all kinds of stuff that happens in there. So, and in our lives. And so how do we tell those? And like that is also Christian art as well. So
Wow. So that's
yeah.
good. So I was reading something. Tell me about uh, your work with the Joyriders.
Oh, is that so? It's not really much work that I've done for them. So the guy who started that, who was working on that project, um, he asked if I would do a piece of art to promote it. But I'm not sure. Did it go anywhere? Do you know anything about it, or were you just looking? Or
Well, I think when I was just getting to know more about your art,
yeah,
I saw that you did a piece for,
yeah,
and I liked what you had to say about it.
yeah. The Joyride, to my understanding, was a TV show pitch that someone was working on, who actually gave me that freelance job. That first one, his name was Raymond Carr, and he's a puppeteer. He's worked with the Jim Henson Company. Jim Henson started Sesame Street and all that. And so Raymond gave gave me my first freelance job when I moved here to Seattle for a TV show pitch. And then, pitches go and sometimes nothing happens. But and then the next thing, he was working on a thing called Joyriders, which was kind of like a short film that he was doing that had incorporated some of his puppeteering and puppetry. And he asked several artists, friends of his, like myself, to make a fan piece to kind of help promote it. And I did, especially because I felt like I owed him for getting me my, like, really helped me pay rent. That was another key thing too. Like when I got that freelance job, I was able to, the work I had done allowed me to pay my rent for the month. And that was just game changing for my
Mm.
artistic. Like, I was like, I paid rent. And that from
I
drawing. And that's all
Well,
I
I
did.
think too, what I liked about, I was reading like one of your comments, or maybe it was Raymond's comment, is the representation, the art, and the importance of making sure that there's
Yeah.
there's full representation of everyone.
Yeah.
And I liked seeing your work because I like. I'm gonna pull up your work, and we can talk about it. But what I find interesting and very refreshing in your work is the people of color that you have in your work, and I think that's an important. It's important for children of all ages to be able to see them reflected in the actual work, and
Mhm.
so
Yeah.
that's what I enjoyed seeing
Yeah.
with with your work. So let's look
Yeah,
at.
I give some of that credit to Raymond. That's his as a Black puppeteer.
Mhm.
That's rare, and he's
Yes.
operating high level as
Yes.
well. He's working for one of the greatest, I mean, probably the greatest puppetry company, like Jim Henson. He's
Right.
the guy. So, yeah, Raymond's. Yeah. There's a long story there too, but great.
All right. Well, let's look at some of this, some of your work. And of course, I'm hoping that you're going to share your Super Bowl experience with
Yeah.
some of your artwork too.
So this is that. This one right here is a piece this was this still feels surreal sometimes to say that the NFL was a client technically. Um, but yeah, I got a Instagram message for someone I hadn't seen in years, and they were like, "Hey, would you be interested in doing a piece for the NFL?" And I was like, "Of course!" Like, yes. And I was like, it seemed kind of fake, but it was real. And they were doing in 2020, they were doing because of all that was happening that year, they had a special initiative to highlight artists of color, and they wanted to have various artists of color to depict certain plays that happened that previous week. So your kind of task was to watch a game or watch some of the highlights. Even you don't have to be a football fan or anything. You just need to find a moment from the previous week, make a piece of it, and then send it to me. They were going to post it on their social, tag you, and all that, and yeah, let people see the work that you did. And they also have to play the play that I depicted as well, connect to the Instagram post. So that was an exciting moment, and that led to, which I don't think I sent that, which sorry, but this led to another NFL player saw my post, and he DM'd me and said, "Hey, I just want to say great work. I've always wanted to be an artist, but I love your work, man. It's inspiring." And I was like, "Dude, what?" He reached out to me, and then just out of sheer thank you, I did a picture of him, and I was like, "Hey, just this guy, just his name is Kevin King, and he actually went to UW here." And I just said, "Hey, this is for you. Thank you for reaching out." And I gave it to him. And he posted it and had it as his IG Instagram
Right.
profile for a bit. So that was just a moment that led to that just connection. And I ended up getting a lot of football fans following me, and I was like kind of nervous. I was like, I don't really do sports art, but occasionally I can, but it's not like my main
Right.
thing. So I think they thought they were going to get a lot more sports drawings as well.
Very good. Very good. All right. So let's see. So
Yeah.
with your illustrations now, you're also doing books.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So that was the plan all along, really. Like, I've always wanted to do, first I wanted to do comic books for DC and Marvel comics, where the movies are being made now. And then now I feel like I'm much more wanted to just do children's books, and I have some stories I'm going to do myself as well. But this one is the latest one that came out in March, called The Tales of Chance and the Faithful Few, written by Shannon Wynn and Marvin Winans. Winans, the gospel family. So Marvin, yeah, he and I know, my family known them for years. And so Marvin was like, he wanted me to draw it. And I was like, I'm not going to not draw a book with your name on it. So let's go. So yeah, Chance is a church. Is in short, the story is about this church mouse named Chance with his family, and Chance is getting in a lot of trouble with the pastor of the church, and the pastor has enough and then calls an exterminator to take out the family. And so Chance and his family have to try to survive this exterminator coming to kill them. And it talks about how they use faith to overcome this dangerous situation that they're in. So it's pretty intense, but it's also funny and for kids and stuff too.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Very nice.
It was fun. This is something that both of these actually were doing this while in the middle of sermons and all that. And I don't know how I did it, but people, how'd you do both? I'm like, I'm not sure actually. um, Cully and Mila, this is the first one I did, I think back in 21. And just, it was a big learning experience for me, just of what it really took to do a whole book, start to finish, and the process of working with, collaborating with writers, and trying to get their vision, and then also what I found interesting to draw. So that was a thing. And the Halloween part of it is really that they go through with their parents, their sisters, and they have like a hard situation with their parents that's scary for them. And
Mm,
so that, yeah, it's kind of a story that helps kids deal with issues of divorce, really, if their parents are getting divorced. So it's a kind of a heavier book, but it
right.
also has some fun kid stuff in it too. But both of these, they want to be series, but we'll see what ends up happening
Right.
down the line. Yeah.
So how do you what's your inspiration for the actual characters? Like, are
Yeah.
these people that you know, or are these
Yeah.
just people that you're creating?
Yeah. A mix. So Cully, for instance, the lighter skinned daughter on the left, she's based off of Hattie, the writer, Hattie Mitchell. She has a daughter named Cully.
Okay.
And so we kind of based it off of her daughter. That look is there, down to the gap tooth and the big smile
Mhm.
and everything. And then the other sister with the barrette, she's kind of a mix of a few things that I just, images that I found of little girls, but also the author Hattie's sister. So which would be Cully's aunt. So it's kind of a mix of things that we kind of put all together. And then I like to find just images on Pinterest and try to bring it all together and try to make something that looks different where people
Mhm.
can't tell if you copy something. You put enough mix in there and then no one can tell what you did. So
Right.
yeah.
Well, I saw a picture that you did, a beautiful picture that you did of your grandmother,
Hmm. Yeah.
um, in 2018, I believe it was, and it was just,
That was this year actually.
oh,
Yeah.
that was this year?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, your grandmother,
She passed in 2018.
she
Yeah.
passed
Yeah.
away in
Yeah.
2018, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But that, and I was like, then I realized it was your grandmother, and so that's
Yeah.
why I was,
Yeah.
um, asking. Just
Yeah.
I love the how your characters, they have so much um personality,
Yeah.
each of your characters here. Now, who's this?
This was just made up. This was something I was trying to practice. So this is a digital art piece. I did this on my iPad, and I was practicing with these new like textures and paint things. And I wanted to get it to a point where it looked like, I didn't want to just mess around with brushes, but I wanted to do a person. And so that's where it came out. And
Wow.
cool thing, my wife put this as her phone background, so that's nice. She liked
So she
it.
liked it.
Yeah.
She,
So yeah, I don't know. Again, I don't know everyone's medium or what they use to make art, but iPad is great for digital art and practicing and stuff like that. And so yeah, I learned how to use some of those tools on there.
so for the most part, you're pen and ink. What?
Pen and ink. Just started using Copic markers. Very expensive, but very great tools. Like incredible tools, Copic markers. I don't know if they look like these
Mm-hmm.
little,
Yep.
they blend and mix and all that. So I just started using those, but pen and ink is usually my thing. And then before I would do it black and white on paper and then scan it and then kind of do the colors digitally. But with AI coming along and changing the game a little bit, I'm trying to make myself go back to uh, paper, because I feel like no matter how amazing AI gets, people aren't gonna. You can't deny like holding something in
Right.
your hand, a person touched and make mistakes on, and you know, so that's where I'm trying to face the future and then also not not fear it.
And not, that's right. Not
Yeah,
to fear it. Right.
yeah,
Right.
yeah, yeah,
You have your signature.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know?
yeah. So
So so what do you feel is on the docket in the future for you?
yeah. Well, let me say two things. I did want to share one thing that I'm doing and to connect Christianity and even or how we grow in our faith. One thing that I've been doing for the past couple months, and kind of need to do it more. I found myself like dealing with like consumerism and like wanting stuff. Ooh, I can't wait to buy that. Oh, I want to get this or upgrade this thing. And so I started sketching in like my little notebook things that I wanted to buy but didn't need. So part of that's kind of revealing because it's like a watch or a car or it's like a pair of shoes and stuff like that. And I was just like, man, I'm over consuming. I need to produce more than I consume. And so I started to sketch in my little notebook that's right over here, like just stuff like what do I want? What do I like? Draw it, don't buy it. And so I just started doing that. And then I did start buying some stuff. And so I'm like, I need to start drawing, sketching those things again. And it actually gave me some of that similar satisfaction
Huh.
from drawing it. Not the same. It's still like it's a practice I'm trying to like teach myself to make something rather than buy all the time.
Yes.
And even do I have it here? Yeah. This was my Apple credit card. It's backwards for you guys, but it says consume less. So I just kind of like have these markers that I kind of the card is white as a whole, so I
Right.
just painted on it and put consume less, and I have it above my desk here. Yeah, it's backwards for you guys, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, but that's what it says
That's
before.
cool. Oh,
So
that's
yeah, good
so
reminder.
it sounds like you're using your art as a discipline.
Hmm.
Yeah, I find my art has the last guest that we had, I asked them like, what surprises you, or what surprise did God do, like as it pertains to your art? And one of the surprises for me is definitely art has become a spiritual discipline for me, part of my spiritual practice. And I find that a lot of times now, which really has surprised me, is that when I am painting or when I am doing my art, I feel so close to God. I just feel his presence all around me. And so I'm asking you what has how has he surprised you with your art?
Yeah. Yeah.
Besides besides surprising you with being able to pay your rent that first time, which that's
Yeah,
that's big.
was let me tell you, that was like
That's
a
big.
shout, which shouting in church like that
Yeah.
because it was like deadline time. I was like, the rent,
Yes.
and I heard that Venmo come in, and I was
Yes. Thank you, Lord.
yeah. Um, I think it's been His grace um for me to even be able to do it. And let me explain. Going back to 2020 again, summer of 2020 was a big turning point for me in several ways. Just how much time we got? We got time. But um, because of what was happening nationally, COVID, of
Yes.
course, all that. My job, particularly at the church at the time, I was focused on racial justice and reconciliation.
Hmm.
I did not want to go long term into ministry.
Hmm.
I wanted to. I was My job was supposed to be like a 2-year residency, so I was done at the end of 2 years, and that was the end of the 2 years. So I was like, thought I was on my way out, and God was speaking to me that there's still more work to do. Obviously, we're talking about race and
Yeah.
justice. So it's like there's still more work to do. We're not done, and I was like, all right. And I felt okay. I felt the peace that I could keep going, but that summer, I was preaching my first sermon at this church, which was going to be kind of a big deal for me. There, it's a big church, and I was going to preach my first sermon. And I also had artwork that I really wanted to do. And there was this night where I was sermon writing, and then I kind of put the sermon on pause, and I spent some time drawing in the middle of the night, and suddenly I had this feeling in my spirit. And I was just like, oh man, I was like, I'm not going to be an artist anymore. I'm just going to be a preacher. And I was like, God, I did not want to do this. I told you, I was like, this is not what I want to be. And immediately in that moment, God spoke to me. And this is one of the few times where I can like almost audibly,
Yes.
close to audible, hear God say, you're still going to be an artist, but that's not all that you're going to do. So clear, still going to be an artist. That's not all you're going to do. And I knew in that moment, he was like, you're going to preach the sermon and you're going to do this other stuff, but I'm going to let you do both. And what that showed me in that moment was like, wow, God, you're in charge. You're like, I can run and try to go my own detoured way and everything, but I won't get very far, because where you're going to run where God can't find you. And so I knew in that moment that he was calling me to do both, and that it would be challenging, but some kind of way he was going to let me do it. And thus, when I look back on these two books, as I said, like it was challenging, and some kind of way, both things happened. But God was very clear. So when people even ask me, "Oh, are you doing art at all?" I'm like, "Yes." It's just not all that I do.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's great.
Yeah.
Because he wouldn't just give you that gift
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then not have you,
Yeah.
be able to.
Yeah, both. I feel if I were to not do art in any way, create, it would be disobedience in that way too. Just as, you know, leading a ministry and, preaching, a few times a year, stuff like that would be me being disobedient. Because I know that's for at least this point in my life. I don't know how long,
Right.
but for this point in my life, this is where he has me. I know that not doing the art would also be disobedient. And thankfully, I have a lot of friends and family who make sure that, I need to be creating something. And I think also I get a little grumpy if I don't create after a little while too.
Yeah.
So people look out for me and make sure I'm doing stuff.
That's great. That's great when we have friends and loved ones who hold us accountable
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
our gifts and how we are utilizing our gifts.
Yeah.
So that's great.
Yeah.
Hey, as part of one more question before I open this up to our community here. So what is I always love hearing about people's process because for a long time I didn't realize my own process as it pertains to art. So
Mhm.
what's your process
Like if I'm creating one of those
when
pieces
you're
of software.
creating one? Yeah.
Yeah. Uh,
And even your process for your sermons, that's art too. That's art
yeah,
making.
it is. I think of it that way in some
Yeah.
ways. So I mean, it all starts with an idea most times, or just a desire to get something out, but often an idea that I might have. And then, man, one of the truest advice that people give is like just get something on the page,
Yep.
right? For writing or for drawing, like because the big blank white page is the scariest thing. And so just getting something on there to start is important, and then you figure out the rest later. But so if I were to do something color, here's this is gonna be backwards too, but this is something, it's a two-part. It's like the Disney and Warner Brothers
Hmm.
that I was Disney versus Warner. So it's like a thing that I drew and Mickey Mouse there. This will start as pencil sketch, rough, looking very rough. And then I will go in later and do ink. So I have, ink, different ink pens. And then the next thing I will use these, when I did the color, I used these Copic markers
Right.
to do. And this was like really my first practice run with these Copic markers.
Nice.
I hadn't used these before. I was a little nervous. So I had a lot of scratch paper that I was testing out everything on. but yeah, so then I put everything on here. I watched a few YouTube videos to try to, you know, figure out what to do. But yeah, it's sketch with pencil, kind of final lines with ink, and then color on top of that. And sometimes what I can do with this, if it's black and white, I can scan it and put it on the iPad and then do digital colors
Okay.
like that's all on there too. And then for the books, because when I'm working with people who might have a different vision and stuff, I do that digitally because there's just times when you might get far and they might say, "Oh, can we change this?" And then you do all that work tradition. You can't change it
Right.
super. So all that's digital, so I can go in and change the color of a shirt or something without having to redraw the whole thing.
Right.
Yeah.
But let me ask you, like with illustrations like that, do you ever like get a dream or an actual like when I'm doing something, I love beauty. I love beautiful things. I mean, this spring, I'm telling you, I'm just like going nuts. Every time I walk out my door, the flowers and the blossoms, cherry blossoms and things. So like I almost cannot wait
Mhm.
to like sit down and either paint it or do a watercolor or sketch
Right.
it or something. I just want to capture
Right.
beauty. Like, are
Right.
you finding
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. Yeah. So daydreaming,
yeah,
so not necessarily like in a dream while I'm sleeping, but more daydreaming,
yes,
or a thought or a concept crosses my mind, and it'll make me think of how I want to something I want to make or create. Really for the book that I want to work on next, which is a story that I'm making up. It crossed from through an experience
yeah,
several years ago. That was like, whoa, there's something there. Let me mess around with that some more and then turn it into this whole thing that I started kind of procrastinating on a little bit and took a lot of detours, but we're going to get there. We're going to get there and
right,
finish this thing. So hopefully that's book 3 for me. Book number
cool,
3.
real cool, real
Yeah.
cool,
So
cool.
yeah, it's usually like it might be, yeah, a thought, a concept thought. Wouldn't it be cool if
Yeah,
like, and then the gift of being able to draw too is being able to do it, to put it on paper as well. I feel privileged to be able to do that.
yes,
Um, and I can't say privilege because there's a lot of work. I think it's years of practice. I can't
right.
even say it's too much privilege, but yeah, years of this trying to learn anatomy, learning how to draw a hand, knowing you want to draw the hand but you can't do it was so frustrating. But so for everyone, if anyone's watching and you want to get better, like it's a lot of practice too. So I can't even.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm curious for our Convergence community. Is there anyone who would has a question that you'd like to ask Anthony? I'd like to open it up now for us to be able to do that. Okay, Steve, unmute yourself.
Anthony, great seeing you. Love your
Hey,
stuff. Love your vibe. Um, how do your coworkers and the people at the church, Bel Prez, by the way, for everybody on the call, is a very it's a large church and it serves a very high level executive population in the Seattle area. You know, Microsoft is right down the road and so forth. Um, how do your number one, how do your coworkers, the staff, take the fact that you're such a Renaissance guy? Have they known what to do with you?
mm,
Number one, or is like, okay, we got the Anthony who's the discipleship guy. Oh, and we know he does this artistic thing. Have they begun to speak words of encouragement or have words come your way, like imagining how they could use you in this era that we're in, that values profound statements through art?
mhm. Sort of. uh, so one way where I felt encouragement with that, Steve, not I won't say so much staff, but especially the congregation. Uh, a lot of them bought this book, Chance, and I didn't announce it. I wouldn't do that I don't use my platform to say, here's what I'm doing, church. But of course, I use Facebook and Instagram to let people know. And a lot of people have bought the book and come to me and asked me to sign it for their grandchild or something like that, which was nice. It just shows that they're like, they see, and they were the ones asking, how do you do that sermon or that? Because you preached last year, didn't you preach several times? And I was like, yeah. And so they're seeing. I think this book especially, they've been able to see the two sides of it more real in a way, because it's not just a picture that I drew, but it's a series of pictures, right? And then I would say on the staff side, where I see even more happening now, is our creative team. Like, there's about 4 people on the creative team that do all the church videos and things on the website and all that. They like to ask me what they trust my insight or my thoughts on things more than maybe others. So they're like, hey,
More
yeah,
than
what
the
do you think?
people in the department.
Yeah. Even though like they know I can't work on that team because we're doing discipleship ministry and stuff, but so I can't spend all my time designing graphics or giving feedback on graphics. But there's times when they do respect, appreciate an opinion that I may have on a video or something like that. And I actually have to restrain myself to say I can't nitpick or give feedback on everything the creative team is doing, because it's not what I'm supposed to do most of my time. So but yeah, I think it's they're learning with me. I think, how do I do both? Because I got a glimpse this past year, but I'm still learning. I think, God, what does both look like? You said it. It's not the only thing I'm going to do, but help me. This is your word, so help me do both.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's nice. That's good.
Yeah.
Good. Someone else? Hey, Joanna.
Hi, thank you for your sharing. Looking forward to read more like children's books from yours. And I have one question that what is your biggest struggle for doing both? Is time the biggest struggle or other things? Yeah, thank you.
It's going to have to be time. Time is the winner. And before, it used to be money, because I didn't have money to even like really survive. And then I had time, but no money to like do the rest of life. Then I got money, but then no time. The paradox. And then now I'm married. So my wife before I even took this job to do that book, Chance, I asked her, I was like, hey, this is going to be our first year of marriage. Are you okay if I draw this book and work? And we worked it out. We had our time together and all that. And then she goes to sleep kind of early. And so I would stay up late drawing, and then she would go to sleep. But now, most of you are on the call. My wife's pregnant too. So we are going to have a baby in September. And so there's more of the time that is going elsewhere. So we're going to see how this is going to go. But I still believe with my time shifting again, God's standard is still going to be the same, like both. He's not saying don't do one, but so I got to learn how to be a good husband, father, and then the other things.
That's great.
Yeah.
Cornelia.
Adrian, I do have a question, but first of all, I noticed that Lisa has a question on the chat. Can I draw your attention to that? Can you see it? Or I could read
Here
it
we
out.
go.
You got it?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So do you ever feel like your artist's training and experience give you certain tools for theological reflection or engagement that maybe others don't have? For instance, your ability to see or pay attention to detail.
Yes. And I don't want to sound like I'm like bragging or anything either, because it's not even that. I'm not like, there's some amazing preachers out there, right, that can just do awesome. I'm not trying to say anything like that. But one of the things I noticed with my senior pastor, who I love and respect a lot, he has a PhD in English literature. Before he became a pastor, that's what he was going to do, teach English. So he's read he had to read every book ever up until a certain point in time. And so he knows good writing and literature and speeches and all that. And one of these sermons I preached, I knew when I was writing it, I was connecting a theme of a wedding, because I told a story about how I had just gotten married and how by the end of the sermon, I had wrapped it back around to the wedding supper of the Lamb in Revelation. And so I had done that. I knew what I was doing. I didn't expect people to catch it necessarily. So I was thinking story. This is my storytelling, trying to use that creative side in a way. And he came to me after he heard part of the sermon, and he said, "You're a man after my heart." He said, you connected a theme line through the sermon. He said, that did this, what do you say, this English nerd's heart so good. So I felt like, and I was like, yes, that's so great. It wasn't just because it was like my boss and my pastor telling me good job, but it was like his creative side of all the reading and literature he had to do. He loved that a lot too. And he, the word was there, but so that was me trying to use my kind of creative thinking to tell those stories, and not just random, but connected to the thing that we were talking about with Jesus.
Great.
Hope that helps.
Hope that answers your question there, Lisa. She unfortunately her computer froze, and so Cornelia, thank you for bringing that to my attention, because I didn't see it. And you have a question too. Go ahead.
I really appreciated, Anthony, how you were talking about your frustration with Christian art, like, put a cross and a lamb in it. It's like, or put a bird on it. No. I don't know if anybody knows that joke about putting a bird on anything and it's good, but yeah, I'm not really sure how to. It's almost like I want to kind of shake the box a bit, It's like, it's not Christian art just because it's got a religious symbol in it. How have you tried to communicate to people, or is it just too entrenched? I know, I hope I don't sound too not controversial. I can't find the word right now, but it frustrates me as a curator and stuff, and I don't know. A part of me wants to say to Christians, like, just move away from that. Find the heart of the creator in the work, in beauty and stuff. What would you? Yeah,
I
sorry,
know.
not clear. It's frustrating.
Yeah. I have a mini talk that I've done on this called like Art in the Bible. That I kind of was inspired by a book. Francis Schaeffer is a theologian. I think he's passed away now, but he has a little mini book called Art in the Bible. And in there he says the Christian is one whose imagination should fly beyond the stars, something along that. The Christian is one whose imagination should go beyond the stars. So, and he kind of addresses, and other, people have to, like, just the sacred secular divide is one of the things that stumps us, is that when we think there's either sacred, Christian, or secular, and you can't get over there or else you're going to be unholy and bad, and it's going to be this is a whole nother talk, guys. I'm sorry if I open up a can of worms.
No, I opened up the can of worms.
Okay, I'm not a heretic, I promise you. But we got to look a little bit more at that and think about, how do we just tell human stories, and how do we get to the truth of what we're supposed to be as Christians without even having to necessarily preach a sermon through a movie or through our book or whatever. I find that most movies I've seen, this is just my personal taste, so no offense to anyone else, but usually when I see a movie and there's like a church service in it, it doesn't do anything to me because it's playing, and I'm like, real church does something to me, but like church in the movie, it doesn't do it. But I find I'm more moved by just a story that's telling a very human, like, here's an experience and there's some truth about God in it that maybe they haven't even used God's name, kind of like the book of Esther in the Bible. God's all in there, but just not necessarily named. And I think there is a time when you need to name God, and then there's other times when maybe you just need to tell a story or paint a picture and let people kind of ask you, what were you thinking? And then you, as the artist, your time to speak up. Can I share one quick thing? I know but if you don't know this, and maybe I can share the podcast if I can find it with Adrian, but there's a Disney animator, or former Disney animator. His name is Glenn Keane. Glenn Keane, and you might be able to find some of his storytelling on YouTube as well. But he's a Christian. And I want to meet him someday because he has a story where he was going to drop out of art school and be a pastor because he felt God was calling him to. But his pastor brilliantly told him, you have a gift and you're going to ruin it if you become a pastor. Can you believe that? He told him, do not become a pastor. You have a gift that you need to use. And so, long story short, Glenn Keane has this kind of testimony that he says when he animated the Beast in Beauty and the Beast. Oh. And he says that scene where the Beast is transformed back into the man, he said on the animation cell, like the paper that he drew it on, he wrote the scripture, if any man is in Christ, he is a new creation. The old things have passed away. That was he couldn't figure out how to interpret that moment. And he said that scripture came to his mind, and he was able to animate the scene of the Beast transforming. And I've never watched that movie or the animation the same way again. Yeah. And he said somewhere in the Disney archives that's penciled in on the side of the animation cell. And that has nothing to do with Jesus, that movie necessarily, like blatantly, but it's there because of this person that in their testimony. So
that's great.
Thank
now
you.
This is who we are. This is what we're about. This is we thank God for Convergence because this is who we are.
Yeah.
You know? So this is great. This is great. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Anyone else have a question or comment that you'd like to make? Yes, Susan.
Hello.
Hi, Anthony. Thanks so much. This is such
I'm
honor.
good. I'm good.
Okay, wait a second.
Okay, she's muting. She's
What do
fine.
we hear? Okay. Very good.
We're good. Thanks so much for sharing your gifts and talking with us about the artistic process. I'm wondering, can you react to two children's children's things, one a book and one a cartoon? The first one is called The Snowy Day, and it's by Ezra Jack Keats. And I have two children, and we would read that all the time. And I found that was the best book for inclusion and a simplistic way of showing the similarity of all kids and the safety of childhood from a perspective that I wanted my kids to have. And then the second one was Little Bill, the series that Felicia Rashad was in. And we watched that all the time. And again, that was an effort to find inclusion, to find different voices, for my kids. So if you could react to those two, because boy, I love those.
Yeah, I hadn't read or seen the Snowy Day. I just looked it up as you were talking, and it looks great. It reminds me of this other book called Last Stop on Market Street, kind of art style wise. And then Little Bill, man, it's so sad. Unfortunately, it's connected to Bill Cosby, right? And that legacy is going that way. But yeah, Little Bill, I had those books as a kid. And then the cartoon came out, and it, for me with representation, like it shows that there's more of a bigger world out there that you might not even be a part of. And it gives kids, even kids of color, the opportunity to pick multiple favorites. For instance, for me, like one of my favorite like I watched Little Bill, but my favorite was still one of the other cartoons. And I like that Little Bill existed because I looked like him, I connected with that. But you still have the opportunity to have the to choose your favorite. Kind of like the TV show Power Rangers back in the 90s was, they had all the different colors of people, black, white, Asian, male, female. And the Black Ranger was there, and he was a black guy, and we liked that as my friends. But my favorite was the Red Ranger because he had a sword, and so it just lets kids pick and have options. So you don't even have to be where the black kids like the black character, or the white kid like the white. It can mix. There's white kids that loved T'Challa. I have a godson who loved the Black Panther toy, and it opens your mind to see that black kids can be the hero. Yeah, we get to pick. And so yeah, these look great. And this is the Caldecott medal winner, the Snowy Day. So that's
yeah. Now that you're going to have a child, thanks for letting me share that with you. Also, the Backyardigans. The series, the Backyardigans. Oh,
yeah.
Very good.
I love the Backyardigans.
Well, listen, it is 6:00 our time, Anthony, and I want to always be true to our guest time. I told you we'd be finished by 6, and we did. So thank you so much for taking time out to hang out with us today and to share. May the Lord continue to bless you. I think this is literally just the beginning of greater things to come. And that's what I see. And so I see an artist who is also one who's doing some serious discipleship ministry. And I see the two are one. And so may you continue to do your thing.
Thank you. And Adrian, thank you, because how it was a year and a half ago or so, where you were like, you need to make sure you do this art stuff, because you pulled me aside at that conference, because you kept saying, you keep bringing it up, and I want to make sure you're doing it. So thank you for making sure. You're one of the people that make sure that I do what I'm supposed to be doing. Well, and then Steve is also great at making sure I do the other side too, like the line.
See, so, look at that. Look at God.
Yeah.
Look at God. Yeah. So this is great. Well, thank you so much. God bless you. And to my Convergence community, thank you for your participation as well in this conversation. So God bless you all. Have a great week.